Hi, everyone. I'm Kate. Can you hear me? Good. So I'm Kate. I'm the chair of the Palmer Center, and this is really going to be a conversation about starting up, how they got their start, where they came from, what were their goals, successes, challenges they faced. So I'm going to start them off and to tell us a little bit about your background, school, work experience, what got you to your startup experience.
Sure. So I'm Simon Nielsen, CEO and founder of Control Me Robotics, and my background is really in mechanical engineering from USC. I also studied aerospace engineering, and right out of school, I joined my first startup, which is, was not necessarily the path that I thought it was going to take, but it definitely turned out to the path that I enjoyed a lot, and that kind of gave me the motivation to do my second startup, which is Control Me Robotics, and we specialize in building drone technology for the future. And in particular, we are right now really focused on autonomous docking systems.
Thanks, Simon. So, name's Dan Burton. Worked in the Senate and then was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. And Ra. So both, again, in Iraq and Afghanistan and other deployments, just was exposed early on to military drone technology and its capabilities. Really believed the systems would commercialize without knowing how. Went to business school, did all my research on the space, came out, worked in finance for a period at Goldman Sachs in their technology group. But at the same time, still was crazily passionate about the space and had actually met Simon and many others who were pioneers really in the early commercial space, and so just basically felt like if I didn't start this company, I would go crazy, and so started, and so we're here in Santa Monica.
And what exactly does DroneBase offer?
Yeah, so DroneBase provides on-demand drone services, so enterprise customers in construction or real estate or mining push a button on the internet and get images, videos, maps, or data in just a few days. Pretty much anywhere in the US is under 1 week, kind of anywhere in the developed world, 1 to 2 week turnaround. We operate through our pilot community. We have a pilot community all over the world of people with their own drone systems that go out and do the work. And so enterprise customers basically never have to buy a drone or train pilots or their employees or have some giant fixed cost contract for a system that might be obsolete in 6 months.
And who are the people requesting these services from you across the country? Is it companies? Is it laymen around the country who just want some drone footage?
Yeah, I mean, so generally working with enterprise customers who have multi-site. So again, like a construction company with 10 work sites all over the U.S. They want a visual project update of all of those sites because they're headquartered in Chicago. They can't travel to all those places, so we provide them a standard output every single month of exactly what's going on at that site, both from an image and video perspective as well as a map and survey of that site. There's also kind of a longer tail of more individual people who want one picture of their lake house. We're building self-serve tools to serve that kind of longer tail as well.
That's great. And now, Simon, I know yours differs a bit because you give people the drones and then they do it themselves.
Yeah, we also do offer it as a service, but it's much more like specialized. So what we've been really excelling at the last 3 years is building custom drones for specific purposes, and these can include everything from mining to big amusement parks that need drone shows. So it's really like a wide breadth of both hardware and software solutions that we've been able to provide.
And so what were your first steps in starting Control Me?
So my first steps was through the meetup community, actually, the LA Robotics Club. My previous startup, we were hosting LA Robotics Club, and this guy comes in and is like, Simon, you need to come here quickly. And I was like, okay, I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks, so I want to see what he was up to. And he showed me, that was the first time I saw a drone have a function where it could autonomously fly back to where it was taking off. And to me, that was like a game changer. I knew instantly that this was something that was going to be really big. So a few months after that, I quit that startup and started Control Me Robotics.
And how did you go about doing that for all the wannabe
Sure.
entrepreneurs?
So it always helps, right, if you have some funds that you can rely upon. But it doesn't necessarily require, like, and this also depends on what kind of startup you're trying to start. Like some startups really require a lot more resources than others, especially the ones that are mobile or like software based, tend to be cheaper to start off in the beginning. And it's really like if you have enough to pay yourself or to survive for 6 months, like then you can start a startup, right? You need to have a little bit of like a savings just to be responsible. But at the same time, you don't start a startup because you're responsible. You start a startup because you're passionate, right? And it's one of those things where you have to be a little bit foolish as well, right? You have to really just believe that this is going to lead to great things and not necessarily worry about like your paycheck and how much money you're going to make and all that stuff.
Is that the same for you?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of, didn't even know I was going to start a company, honestly. Just had gotten to know probably 70 to 80 people who were hobbyists who started doing drone work as a part-time thing. Some had gotten to the point where it could really be their full-time job. Got to know 70 or 80 of these operators and would kind of build systems with them, go out and do work, just try to understand what is this like. And so, about 100 people came to me and said, look, I love going out to fly my drone. I hate everything that's about running a small business. If it's sales or marketing and payments, I don't want to do it. If it is data processing or data analysis, I can't do it. I just want to literally go out to a work site, do my job, and upload it to a server and get paid. Partially because I was in the military. I don't ever want to ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to do. So I took probably 4 or 5 months and just literally worked as a commercial drone operator myself and just had 5 or 6 systems, would work industrial corridors here in Southern California, at construction sites, at mines, just listen to what people wanted, see what value we could provide, see what they were doing currently, and just tried to listen and learn from customers.
So why did you choose LA? I mean, you could have gone to Silicon Valley and you've done San Francisco, but you chose Silicon Beach, for lack of a better term. Any particular reason?
You want to start that? Or?
Yeah, I chose LA because not only did I go to USC, but I love LA. And I think it's one of those things where as an entrepreneur, you're really busy, and if you're not in a place where you're happy, then you have like so little time really outside work. So you might as well be in a place where you're happy. And to me, LA is the perfect like balance between like the beachy, go easy life, and also still have like a big community and a big audience as well.
Was there a big drone base here when you started, or did you kind of come up with that? And just...
I feel like we were definitely early on in the LA drone community, so there wasn't much going on, but that was, I feel like even in San Francisco, which many people would see as like the natural choice, there wasn't that much going on at the time, so it was just starting.
Yeah, I'd say like for us, it makes complete sense. I think like Southern California is kind of the home of the drone pilot, drone operator. People know how to make money on flying cameras here, or just any camera, essentially, and you can fly over 300 days a year. I think San Francisco, certainly you find, people in San Francisco just instantly think on any new technology, what's a scalable software business I could build? But I think being here in LA, honestly, sometimes constraints are actually make you be more creative. I think if Simon or I were in San Francisco, it would be very tempting to join some of the bigger venture-backed companies that were already there. But literally in LA, you're probably going to have to start something if it's your passion and if it's your dream. There's just less options. So I almost didn't necessarily want to just start a company. We were just kind of compelled to because we had this idea and there wasn't anybody else doing it.
And what were the initial challenges you faced starting off, aside from monetary?
Yeah, I think for us, it was definitely the core idea of what we wanted to build exactly. It wasn't clearly defined, and that's one of the things that I think most investors would look upon and say, you need to figure out what you want to do first. And the way we did that was by monetizing what we knew could be monetized right away, even though we knew that it wasn't necessarily the end goal. And just to add to what Dan was saying about the film industry here, that was the easy way to monetize right away. The film industry, it just makes sense to use drones. you cut the cost of filming something from the air just to like a third, if not less than that. And also the types of shot you can get is completely different.
What challenges did you face when you first started up?
I mean, there's just so many. I think that we went to Y Combinator in their winter 2015 class, and one thing they taught us was really to focus, honestly, because there's so many things you can do. There's so many challenges that present themselves to you, but I mean, Y Combinator was really good at focusing, again, me on the business side, at selling a product and just constantly talking to users, making something that people love, not just like, and then just focusing. I have a wonderful co-founder and CTO who's been 10 years at like Microsoft, focusing him on coding, building a product, shipping a product, while you're still basically embarrassed by it. If you're not embarrassed, you waited too long to ship. So just disciplining us around how to focus on what to do was something we learned pretty early on.
And when did you see things start to turn around? Was there like a moment or sell something?
No, I mean, I think just, again, we were lucky to find some early customers who like loved us and loved us so much that they give you brutally honest feedback. When people actually pay you money, and it's much more valuable than giving something to someone for free. If someone pays you, there's a buy-in, and it will just be brutally honest. But in that honesty are all of the kernels of what you should do and what you should build. So we had people who loved us enough to be really hard on us, and by doing that, we could kind of build what would make them love us even more.
What turned things around for you? What kick-started?
It's tough to say. I feel like for us, it was much more like a gradual approach, and that was just the way the business was set up. It was set up to really have some revenue from day one, which is not necessarily a traditional way, but if you don't necessarily know what the end goal is, that's kind of like probably like the safest way to do it. And then once we hit the point where we felt like we knew the industry well enough, we had enough insight into the industry, and we knew where the future of the industry was going, that's when we started, not only raising capital for the startup, but also really focusing a lot of resources on R&D. And so that was about a year ago.
So how did you develop your goal? You said you didn't really know what your end goal was.
It's very similar to what Dan is talking about. We really talked to our customers and the people. We've done a lot of customized projects for a lot of big companies, and the same problems kept coming up. And if it keeps coming up and there's not a good solution, then it's probably time to build that solution.
So, right.
What exactly do you see are the challenges in terms of the FAA regulations and any California law regulations? Do you see safety concerns in terms of, having a meetup and having people, build and learn how to make drones?
I don't think there's many I don't think the FAA cares enough about those kind of things. Like hobbyists are kind of like a different category that the FAA doesn't pay as much attention to right now. But I think from a commercial standpoint, we have like the 333 exemption as well, and I feel like there's a lot of problems with having kind of like the FAA basically governing by exemption rather than having rules, because they're giving out so many of these exemptions that it's not really an exemption anymore, right? But they don't have clearly defined rules that make sense for the industry. So for one of the problems is, especially in the film industry, you can't film after dark, and when it comes to flying, a lot of places it doesn't make sense to film after dark. But if you're in a closed set and you're flying, at tops 20 feet above and it's all lit up, it doesn't make sense to not be able to do that. So I think from an industry-wide standpoint, it's definitely bad that we don't have clearly defined rules. It also, certain investors also question that. I don't know if, Dan, you ever experienced that, but I definitely had a lot of investors. Every time they're like, so what is the FAA going to do? And the question is easy, but the answer is not, right? It's like we don't know. The FAA has been working on this for a long time.
Do investors still want to invest? Are they okay with those answers?
Yeah, I think that there's so much buzz around the industry in general that it's not enough to scare investors off, but it's, as investors always play devil's advocate, right? They want to try to find the holes, so that's an easy one to go to at the moment. Yeah,
and so, we're also a 333 exemption holder, but I do give, and so in conjunction with the White House, who was pushing some of this as well, like the White House and the FAA, I do think they do deserve some credit for kind of like putting out what's called Part 107, which is the proposed rule. There's some issues with that, but I think it's a pretty broad and good start to basically a commercial drone operator's license. And so under that, you'll take a written test, pay $200 one-time fee, and you'll have a license to basically perform commercial drone operations within certain guidelines. I think that would be at least a good start moving forward. And I mean, we really believe like being a drone pilot is a profession. We want to treat folks professionally. We want them to develop skills, standards, be properly insured, do things the proper way. So we put a ton of thought into it. I think just the proposed rule would give a good marker out there to then build from, but it's one of these cases where, like Simon said, governing by exemption rather than a rule.
And so where do you see your DroneBase going? What are your goals moving forward as a startup? And do you still see yourself as a startup at this point?
Oh, I mean, we're absolutely a startup. Yeah, I would hate to even lose the mentality of what that is. I mean, I think it's just basically like the smallest number of people that can come together around a shared goal to impact something. I think that we're 6 or 7 people now. The amount that we can do, I mean, we feel more nimble than hundreds we feel more nimble and effective than companies that are hundreds of people. So I have no problem staying a startup at all. I mean, in long term, like DroneBase wants to make the world viewable in real time, essentially. We're making a little part of the world viewable in kind of 1 to 2 weeks. In a year or two, we'd like to be making bigger regions of the U.S. visible in kind of 1 to 2 days. Love to get to even closer to real time. And so I think the best analogy of a drone is honestly like a server, to be honest. As in, like, I don't think companies will ever own, like, over the long term, I don't think companies and corporations will own drones. They will just get the value from them and just pay for whatever variable amount they want to use that value. So they want a daily map, you'd pay for that amount. If you want a weekly video, you'd pay for that amount. Like, just accessing this like amazing back end of technology for however much you want to use it. So we think about our business model in terms of that.
And maybe I can just ask you, Dan, first, because it interests me as well. But how do you see like the future of drones? Like, do you see, because some people kind of describe a scenario where you have drones flying everywhere. How do you see that? Do you see that as likely, or what do you see?
Yeah, again, just like a server, I don't think, maybe IBM, big companies may need a huge server farm, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be like an iPhone where everyone has a drone. So I'd say like, actually, a year ago, I probably would have said there'd be some class of system called like an enterprise drone. That would be like a big system, very expensive. Companies would buy it. It would do a lot of integration. I've really changed my perspective, actually in large part kind of due to DJI, just seeing what they've done. And I mean, much like, again, like this is my enterprise phone, right? My enterprise computer's a MacBook Air. What people think of as kind of consumer or prosumery drone systems are actually fully capable of doing enterprise and commercial work. I mean, we're using like an Inspire 1 to go map 200 acres autonomously down to 2 centimeters accuracy. And those systems are all over the world. You know what I mean? So, and they cost $2,500, or the Phantom 3 costs, $900 for the smallest, for the entry-level system. So I really think that the systems, again, like these quote-unquote consumer systems really will be the ones that tackle enterprise use cases with the right software kind of equipped.
Where do you see Control Me going in the future?
So right now we are really focusing heavily on development and investing a lot of both time and resources into development, and we in particular are focusing on like the full autonomous system. I fully believe that the future of drones is a drone where you don't necessarily have pilots. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's really what we're working towards.
And going back to how you began, how did you find people to welcome into your startup and build it from there? Like the talent and the people in your startup.
I think that's probably one of the the key things that you don't talk enough about, but like the people and especially co-founder is so important to any startup. And I've been in a startup where I didn't feel like the co-founders were necessarily a great match, but the market was great, the opportunity was good, so I chose to go with it anyway. And now knowing what I know, I probably wouldn't have done that this time around. It took me a lot longer to find a co-founder, but at the same time, I also made sure it was the right person, because it is, it's a little bit cliche to say it's like a marriage, but it is sort of like a marriage. You spend so much time together, so you have to be on the same page, and you have to really respect your co-founder. It's like, it has to be, I would recommend finding a co-founder that's much better at doing something that's important to the business, right? Because you need to have this kind of balance where you together provide more strength than the individual pieces. So I think that's key.
So you would know how to build the drones, and Adam, your co-founder, he's more the business side of things?
Yeah, so Adam came on early on, and then Sammy is actually the co-founder that we recruited about a year ago, and his expertise is really security and software. So I'm the hardware guy, and he's the software guy.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's a great question, and I mean, I just can't say. I mean, I'm probably like Simon. We're proud of a lot of things, but I'm most proud of the team, the people we put together, and just I'm so humbled and grateful. These people put so much energy and effort and thought and creativity into what they do every day. It's the best part of what I do. So, like Simon, met a wonderful, just a friend. We talked about starting a business for a while. He was sort of like Eli. I'm purely kind of operational business side. He's pure software. Had been at 10 years at Microsoft, Amazon, and Netflix. So the nice thing is there's a clear division of labor, which is important. There's really we both maintain the culture of our company, but very much have our own kind of verticals within the company. And so we're about half software engineers, half kind of operationally focused people, and the people on the business side are all really good drone pilots, actually. So having that division of labor just clarifies so much, and I defer so much to him, and he does the same to me. I think that's a good basis for a founding kind of relationship.
Do you see your company itself growing? I know you said you want to keep it small in a startup, but do you see yourself expanding?
No, I mean, of course. I think that's if you're going to expend resources as a young company, it's going to be through people. I do think we really hire very slowly, and we've just been so fortunate with who we have now. I think another nice thing about LA is there is a tremendous bench of talent here, engineering talent as well. I don't know if there's always a technical or deep technical outlet for some of that talent among some of the companies here, but we've personally been, I feel fortunate for DroneBase, but I'd say we take our time to bring on the right people, very clear about what our culture is, and make sure that we have a time to kind of gel with the core group before we bring other people on.
And how did you go about determining what culture you wanted for DroneBase?
Yeah, so I mean, I've worked at various places. I mean, I've worked at Goldman, I went to business school, was in the Marine Corps, was in the Senate. All those organizations did some things well. All those organizations did things less well. Like my founder worked at Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix. And so it's really about bringing the best of what you've seen in other organizations and taking what maybe wasn't as fun and jettisoning that and saying, I'm just committing to not doing that. So, I mean, I could run you through our entire thing, but I think for us, we really prize humility, just because in this space humbles you because it changes every 3 months. And if you're arrogant or think you know everything, you will not learn, and you just will not succeed, because there's just no way that Simon or I could intuit where the space will be in 2 years. So staying kind of humble and just having a ferocity of passion for the space and working hard, that's the core of what we do. But again, I have a 10-point culture document that I take everybody through. So.
What about you, Simon?
So I think our philosophy in the beginning, especially, and still, because we're still in the beginning, but our philosophy is that we want to hire superstars. And it doesn't mean that the person has to be able to do everything really well, but the person definitely has to be able to do at least one thing that's key better than everyone else. They have to have like something that really brings like the team, the level of the team higher. And I think the other thing that's really important when you hire someone is that you need believers. You need people who truly believe in what you're doing and also believe in you as a founder and is willing to sacrifice a lot. And I think that's what we have with our team. And it's hard to find. And sometimes it's one of those things you have a candidate that's really qualified on paper, but you can tell that, yeah, he kind of sees like maybe it's an opportunity and maybe he will work or for like for some equity and try to put in some time, but it's not like he kind of has other ideas as well. And if you're presented with that kind of choice, I think it's better to go with someone who's extremely passionate and maybe doesn't have quite the same like foundation or background. So passion is just so important because startups are not easy. It's not meant to be easy, but it's still, we love it, right? It's like we wouldn't want to trade it for anything else, but it's definitely not easy.
Did being in LA shape your experience, do you think, or was that more internal that shaped how you?
I think being in LA definitely shaped our culture in the sense that we are pretty relaxed. And my philosophy is, I don't care necessarily if you take some time off or if you're relaxed during the day, as long as you get a lot of work done. As long as you do what you're supposed to do, and everyone on our team do more than what they're supposed to do, right? What times it's almost 8:30, and I'm sure there's still like people in the office, right? That's the kind of culture you want.
And how did LA shape your startup?
Yeah, I mean, in several ways. I mean, unfortunately, most of our investors, I think, are from elsewhere, Bay Area, New York. But again, I'd say I think LA does put some. I mean, it's not San Francisco. Like San Francisco is the epicenter of the tech world. It just is. There's no point to pretending it's not. But again, I think that LA does put some hard constraints around what you're trying to do. I think that. Again, there's just much less chance that the company you want to work for exists here. So, again, in our case, no one in the world was doing what we were doing, but we had to start the company because, again, you'd probably be tempted, it's just much more tempting to join one of the many venture-backed companies up in San Francisco potentially if you just weren't really willing to take that risk or you just weren't quite there yet. So I'd say LA is actually most helpful in the constraints it can impose on you.
And what's your favorite part about being an entrepreneur in Los Angeles? Greg mentioned that you have your meetup sessions and.
Yeah, I guess specifically to LA, I like the culture, I like the people, I like the weather, I love everything about LA. So I think that makes me a happier person in general. So having a startup here in LA, you tend to associate or hire the people who kind of have the same feeling about the place. And we've been asked several times if we have plans on moving up to the Bay Area, and the answer has always been no. It's like Dan said, there's definitely a lot of things going on, especially on the VC side. But this round of funding that we're raising right now, we actually chosen intentionally to focus more on the LA VC community, and it's definitely been a different experience because it is much, much smaller than it is up in SF. But it's growing. It's interesting. A lot of things are happening.
How do you feel about being on the forefront of that? Is that exciting or nerve-wracking?
I think it's really exciting. It's always exciting to try to break new barriers, and that's why you start a startup in the first place, right? There's the need that you see. There's a technology or a service that you want to provide that it doesn't exist, and you get to shape that. So that's what excited by the drone world, like Dan was saying, it's changing constantly. Just what was possible 4 years ago, right, is completely different than today. Now it's even the military look to the civil drone industry because it is moving so fast.
favorite part of being an entrepreneur in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so no, I said humility is important, and like nobody cares here about your start. Like nobody cares. You know what I mean? If you're not, it's not entertainment. Like you're at a dinner party, no one's going to care about your startup. Whereas I think if you're in the bubble up north, I think it's very easy to start to worry about like vanity metrics, like who raised what from who, like stuff that is just completely not important to the actual business. So I think that it is much easier to kind of, again, we're so focused, like blinders on our business all day long. It's much easier to pick your head up and get a little perspective, get some fresh air here. It's just kind of a different hustle here. Everybody has a screenplay, not a pitch deck, but same basic concept at work. But like it is nice to be able to just level set and get humble quickly down here.
And what's your day-to-day look like? Are you, trying to create new types of drones to use, or is it more of a business plan and what other markets you can reach into, or like how do you go?
Yeah, again, I really spend my day trying just to talk to users and our paying customers and be out as much as possible, be out in the field with them. Well, that's not that scalable. But if a day goes by where I'm not talking to users constantly, I'm failing at my job. Like that's still our focus. I'm sure over the longer term, a bigger company CEO would be, raising money or doing interviews or other things. But really, what we have found, just like talking to the people who love us and the people who don't, figuring out why or what might make them use us, I still feel like is the best part of my day and the best use of my time.
So my day-to-day right now is extremely hectic, and that is because we're going through the funding round. So I think like fundraising in itself is probably like a full-time job. And right now we also have projects that we have to finish for our clients. And at the same time, we develop our own technology. So right now it's definitely like really swamped. But that's also the way you want it, so I'm not complaining.
When you say, what do you mean by developing your own technology?
So we're really focusing right now on the ability for drones to land and dock really accurately and be able to recharge before the next mission.
And I know we kind of touched on this a little bit in the drone world, but where do you see startups going, other drone startups going, the future of startups?
Dan, do you want to start with that?
So, I mean, I think that we've, certainly have seen people take like a vertically integrated, I'm actually amazed. I see a lot of people take a vertically integrated approach to the space where it's like, I am going to do everything. I'm going to like build a drone. I'm going to like code the autopilot. I'm going to go do the software. I'm going to do the services. I'm going to do everything. It is, every single part of that problem is hard. I think just at least for DroneBase, like we have focused, and we find focus to be very important, really just focusing on like the workflow and services layer. So for example, like from Brendan mentioned SkyFund. So our company was the first, and I think still the only investment from DJI and Excel's SkyFund. We just have like our community, the preponderance of them just are heavy users of DJI products. So it made complete and total sense for us to just like, that is a huge variable to remove. So if we were going to 20 different work sites, we know if we're using one or two reliable systems, like we know we're going to get this exact image quality, this exact flight time, this exact capability of autonomous flight. So it just allows us to remove a huge variable. And really just every part of the stack is hard, and we're just focused on nailing our part and finding best-in-class partners to do everything else.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Dan. Right now, there's a lot of verticals, and there are really like a lot of hard problems like still to be solved. So for anyone to believe they can do everything, that's really tough. Like I think even DJI doesn't believe they can do everything, which is why they created like SkyFund, I presume. So I think in the future there might be some consolidation of the different like technologies. Certain companies will probably be larger than others, but as it is right now, there's still plenty of space in the drone world to attack like certain verticals that haven't been like met yet, or where the needs haven't been met.
And do either of you have any advice for the future entrepreneurs and students in the room who want to become just like you, living the dream?
You just have to do it, and you can't worry too much. It's like there's always a lot of reasons why not to do something like this, because if you want to play the odds, like don't start a startup. If you want to have like a cush life, and then I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing a startup. But you have to do it because you're passionate about it.
I mean, it has to be the same advice. I mean, just if there has to be like just an intense like internal fire that like if you do not attempt to make this idea exist in the world, like you are going to go crazy. And like I think it has to come from that place. I mean, the external motivations fade so quickly. I mean, instantly when you're faced with like the million problems that you're going to have starting from day one, and like you just need to have that. You need that same passion to go. You need to convince like hundreds of thousands of people to believe what you believe to have a successful company, starting with a co-founder, then employees, then investors, then customers, then suppliers, and then regulators. Like there's just so many people you need to convince about your little view of the world. It just has to come from a certain like intensity and desire to see that carried out.
Great. Well, thank you so much to both of you. We really enjoyed talking with you and hearing about all your inspiration. So thank you so much. And back to Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.